Hey, this is Mike Gaston, founder, former CEO of Cut.com. I just sat with Ennis, had a great time. Definitely listen to this. I can't say that there's a lot of opportunity for wisdom in this, but there'll definitely be things that you can mock and make fun of. So check it out. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good.
Where were we? What was the
So at what point did, after you left Boeing, did
Cut happen?
The idea of Cut come about?
So that was a long time. After Boeing, I worked for free for a really long time to learn how to make videos. After I made that music video, I figured I didn't know really what I was doing, even though I had success. So my goal was like just to do a bunch of free shit to figure out like, was it really like to make things? Did that for about a year. Then I fell into the CBS Radio Seattle trap. Once I left that, I created a digital humanities nonprofit with my cousin, who is like an anthropology student at the University of Washington. Did that for a little over a year before I discovered Stripes 39, where I worked and did videos for them and really kind of like learned how to create content that spreads. And it was about a year after that, after talking with Salil and sort of going back and forth on different models, that I told him, I was like, really what we should be doing is just making the sort of content that are going to have an impact on people's lives, and it's going to be of such intrinsic value to them that they are willing to pay for it or things related to it. And at that, he became convinced. And I go, okay, well, if I do this and I make some stuff really quickly that kills it, you know, like, you're going to give me Cut.com. That'll be one of the things, because that was one of the properties his company owned. And he goes, sure. And then within a couple of weeks, I made a video called Grandma Smoking Weed for the first time. And then like a week after that, 100 Years of Beauty launched. And then another series called Truth or Drink, I believe, or Sexy Charades or something. Every single thing we were making was going kind of crazy viral. And that's how Cut came to be. And then within about of like, I want to say a month or so of launching all these properties, the editorial vision and the model sort of crystallized and became a thing. Like, I had taken all these disparate threads in my imagination, I pulled it together to kind of create a vision for this thing that I wanted to make.
So like you said, Cut is known as the company to have cracked the secret of going viral, right? And you've been able to grow the Cut YouTube channel to over 10 million subscribers and garner over 4 billion views. What advice do you have for someone who's just starting a YouTube channel, or someone who's, you know, has one but hasn't, you know, got the traction that they wanted?
Usually when people ask that question, they want some like hardcore mechanics, right? They want to know, like, literally, it's sort of like you go to somebody who's like in incredible shape and you're like, tell me what your workout routine is. What do you eat? I'm just going to do this same exact thing or whatever, right? And so I could tell people, well, the algorithm favors watch time, so make really long videos. Make a lot of them, because so much of how people discover you is through the recommended page. I could say all that. I could say hone in on one category of content and produce that over and over again. All those things are true. And if you do that, you will likely develop a channel over time that will have a substantial amount of users on it. As you can tell, if you look at Cut, we did none of those things. We would make really a huge variety of content, and we purposely avoided creating personalities. Like, we did all these things that are like the worst practices you can possibly do on YouTube. And that, again, that was me kind of going, well, I don't want to do the best practices because I don't actually want to compete with other channels. Like, that's not interesting to me. Like, the audience doesn't care if I beat X, like whatever category. They only care if you create value for them, right? So is it possible for me to develop an audience without leveraging any of these things? And, you know, in my head, that thing that just occurred to me was, in a world of 4 billion, you know, people watching videos online, I only need like 1 million being into my stuff in order to have something substantial. And what's going to get 1 million people to really get into my stuff is if I have a very clear editorial vision. And so what I would say to people is, just generally speaking, there's sort of like a like 4 things that I think about. And note, this is not a formula. These are just principles for how I think about making any kind of work. First one is going, like, what do you want, right? And by that, I mean, what do you want for this thing that you've started? And when I go talk to people out in the world, they'll tell me things like, oh man, I want to be able to live my life as a storyteller. I want to be able to travel the world and do it. I want a van life or whatever. I want to make $1 million. And I'm like, okay, be more ambitious. And they're like, I want to make $10 million. I want to buy my own jet or whatever. I want 100 million subscribers. And I go, great. Well, what about a need state that isn't just about you? And that's when that kind of blows their mind. And by that, I mean going, if you focus your want on literally just what you want, you don't give anyone an opportunity to get to bandwagon, because strangers don't give a shit about whether or not you're rich. They don't care if you're fulfilling your life's, purpose. They care about the things that they care about. And so it's better to think about a need state, a want that actually meets not just your needs, but the needs of a whole lot of other people, right? So if like a need state could be curing cancer, or in my case, the want that I wanted to create was I wanted there to be less assholes in the world. And so that's like an overly ambitious need state, because I felt like we have an overabundance of assholes and we need less of them. But it meets it for a whole lot of people. And it's the kind of ambitious want that it's questionable whether or not you can ever achieve it, right? And the reason why it needs to be that kind of crazy and ludicrous is because you will almost certainly never achieve the thing that you ultimately want. So you might as well make the destination so nuts that you'll, like, even if you get close to it, you'll have had a profound impact. Whereas like if you make it just sort of achievable, okay, great, you hit the goal, but how close were you to like this core of like this much bigger idea? So I begin there. And then the next question I ask people is like, what is your intervention? What is the thing that you can do that literally nobody else can do, right? Define that. What is that thing? And for me, it was, well, I can create work. I can create videos that care more about people, the subjects of the video, and respect the audience in a way that other digital media companies don't. And I can do it with an editorial vision and value set that these other companies aren't going to live by because they're too focused on extracting value out of the audience. I can do that because these guys can't. And because these guys are thinking about the audience in terms of like strip mining some sort of resource, right? And then the next thing you got to do is like define your value set. What are the things about you that are going to be the guiding principles that are going to determine the type of content that you're creating? Mm-hmm. And then out of that, you have to define what you think are the behavioral changes that you're going to create out of all this that are going to lead back to getting to that need state, right? And so for me, it was less assholes in the world, create the kind of content that's empathetic and respects the audience in a way that nobody else does. My value sets are theory of mind, diversity, continuity of identity, sincerity. And then the behavioral change I wanted was for people to appreciate ambiguity. I figured if people can appreciate that, then there will be less assholes in the world. So like, I feel like if you do that, what happens is you create this sort of like really singular vision. And when people find you, they're like, oh, they're attracted to it. They're attracted to it because like so many things are so wishy-washy, or yeah. Like they're the same because everyone's trying to kind of compete with each other. Yeah. And so that's why I would encourage new storytellers to kind of like think about.
Definitely. I think Alibaba founder Jack Ma said it. He's like, if you want to die in business or you want your company to die, basically copy what your competitors are doing.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is one point of contention between Salil and I early days. The person who mentored me at Stripes, I remember when I was making the company and he was like, Mike, you need to go and copy everything that BuzzFeed and Upworthy are doing. And I was like, well, why? And he goes, well, they have all the money. If they have all the money, they can afford the technologists and the data scientists that are essentially creating the tools for predicting virality. And I go, well, I don't know in the history of anything where a smaller force somehow defeated a larger force by copying the strategies and tactics of the larger force. Like that doesn't make sense. Like you have to actually, you have to be kind of like, it's an asymmetrical warfare, right? Like I can't go at them in the same way that they are doing it, because I'm going to lose that ground every single time. So that's number one. And then number two, why do I even care about fighting them? You know, the audience doesn't care if I beat BuzzFeed or BuzzFeed beats me. So like, why should I care? The only thing I should care about is like, how can I create value for the audience in a way that gets the thing that I want?